This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward, and welcome to a very special episode with our amazing summer intern, senior softball player at the University of Kansas, Ms. Campbell.
Welcome, Campbell.
Thank you for having me.
We got to spend 6 incredible weeks with Campbell this summer, and kind of a cleats to carriers experience, learning about the insurance industry and what she would tell other student athletes about exploring the insurance world. What misconceptions did you have about the industry going into the internship this summer?
Boring was the misconception. Everyone seems to think that insurance is all serious and boring and everyone has to do it, but it's kind of a hassle. After talking with 20 to 25 people throughout this summer, I have learned that it is not boring. It's actually the opposite. Everybody I talked with had only great things to say. They kind of said the same thing coming into it. It's not the sexiest job. It's not something everybody wants to do out of college, but whenever they stepped into their role, they loved it and they're able to thrive. I learned that you can be happy doing something that might be out of your comfort zone at first, but everybody that I spoke to spoke very highly of insurance.
It's funny. That's how I felt. So I'm thinking back to when I started, and it's like, I don't want to be in insurance. I'm going to look for something else. And I actually spent the first 5 years while I was in the insurance business looking for other things to do, like looking for other jobs and doing some actual interviews with other things from all kinds of different industries. And I was probably 26, 27 when I finally was like, no, this is a really good industry. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do this. And thank goodness, because it's been a great career and I love it. And I have no regrets for the industry.
I think just on top of that, it's so cool to see the ability for growth within the insurance industry. You have millions of job opportunities, and not only that, but promotion-wise and earning your way. It's truly amazing to see the opportunities within insurance that I had no idea were even out there.
It's like a subset of the entire economy. The insurance industry needs attorneys, accountants. The industry needs marketing, sales, actuaries, underwriters, and it's like so much. There's HR. I mean, there's just so much that it brings to the table that it's a microcosm. It's a very large microcosm because it's a huge industry. But, you know, when you look at like the greater economy, whether you're talking the US, whether you're talking globally, it's just this microcosm of all that. And you've got all these different facets of it. Some of the people that I've watched on the insurance company side of things started out in claims, and then went into underwriting, and then they went into marketing, sales, and they're now a territory marketing rep for an insurance company. Maybe it was a couple of different companies as they went through that. Who would ever have thought that somebody that started out in claims would end up in a sales and marketing role? But that's what's fascinating about the industry. Once you really get underneath the hood and learn about it, you get this knowledge, this experience. There's just something about the opportunities to go in different directions. That experience within the industry is maybe more important or just as important as achieving a college degree or a master's degree.
Campbell, the majority of our listeners are either insurance producers or insurance agency owners. As a member of Gen Z, what can you share with our listeners on how to market to you?
The most common thing that we love is social media and instant gratification. So with that, after experiencing being around Gen Zers on a daily basis, if it's not right in front of us, we're probably not going to look further into it. From an insurance standpoint, if I'm looking to work with a company, an online website is so important. If there's something right in front of me where I can see, okay, this is what we offer, potentially this is how much, those things are going to attract Gen Zers more than, okay, give us a call, email us, we'll get back to you later. They want to know right then and there what it's going to look like. Same thing with social media, posting, right? They want to see what you have to offer right there. If they have to dig super deep and look really in depth, they're probably not going to do it unless they have set time aside to really sit down. They're looking for an insurance agency to work with. then it doesn't have to be right in front of them because that's something that they're searching for. They're willing to do a deeper dive into that. But if it's not right in front of them and they're just aimlessly scrolling, they're probably not going to be that interested in it.
So you said something that catches my attention, and I want to go deeper on this idea of instant information. I think about, I'm an Xer and we got the millennials between us. We'll pick on them a lot today, probably. My view is we don't want to give away our secrets. We don't want to give away our secret sauce or how we do that. So then it becomes, we want to have a conversation with you, or we want to have a conversation with the prospect. We don't want to just give away information. But if I kind of bridge that gap from what you're saying, I'm never going to get a chance to talk to you because you are looking for information and maybe my website doesn't provide enough information, or maybe in the right format that you're wanting to consume it in. So how do we bridge that gap? What are your thoughts on that?
You shouldn't put how much you're charging out there. You don't want to put private information out on social media or on the internet for everybody to see. So for me, something I think that would work is on your website, you have, hey, put your number in here and we'll contact you within 3 to 5 business days. You contact them and they're like, oh, I'm very interested in this. Let me just send them an email or respond. I totally agree. You shouldn't just have your information out there, but have a way of them to get something accomplished within that time that they're willing to invest in looking for your business.
Do you think that Gen Z, if they message you, DM you, or DM the agency, or email the agency, or text the agency, like, is this one of those things where we in the distribution channel need to communicate with people how they communicate with us? If you DM Integra and say, hey, I'm interested in getting some insurance quotes, and I try to call you, is that a turnoff, or does that bother you? Would you rather be DM'd back?
Honestly, no, I would not say that's a turnoff at all. Personally, that shows how invested you are in your clients. Some people would appreciate like hey, I just called you, left you a voicemail, contact me back at this number. But if I DM a company for any reason, especially insurance, and leave my number and they call me back, I'm going to be like, wow, they're very invested in me and I want to have a conversation.
See, I think that's interesting because I think the perception is that you don't want to talk on the phone. You don't want to tell them, and I understand you gave us your number, but the generation itself, the interesting thing is that we hear all the time inside the industry about communicating with people how they want to be communicated with. But yet, I think that's a great perspective because if you call me, then you're really investing in me. That shows that you care, and that is attractive to me as a consumer.
That goes back to the idea of Gen Z versus millennials. Millennials are known for avoiding phone calls when possible, where Gen Z is surprisingly more open to phone calls because they get quick, real-time clarification. That's a true generational difference.
Understanding the consumer, that's the moving target. To circle back to your major, marketing, I think that's what makes that interesting. We live in an age of not only the internet and things like search and SEO, which is kind of old stuff now, but needs to be there. But now we live in a world of social media. You're definitely a digital native, right? You don't know a world without these things. Gen Z can't really say, hey, do you remember when we used to do it this way? I think that's also something that we as an industry need to continue to get better at, understanding digital natives, where the reality of it is AI and things that are going on there. How long have you been using, or when was the first time you used something like a Chat GPT or some tool like that was AI based?
I want to say it would have been my sophomore year when Chat GPT really blew up. I don't really think my freshman year I ever utilized it. I think my sophomore year was when it became really popular to use. And I think that's when they started to create those systems within Canvas, which is our submission format for schooling, to flag for AI because it started to become super popular. So my sophomore year.
Almost 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of jokes about, well, what are you doing inside your agency today? We're doing a little bit of Chat GPT. We started using that. You and your peer group, college students, have been using things like Chat GPT for a couple of years now. That's the point, right? Like we're starting to think about it and use it. You're coming into the workforce within the next year and you've been using it for a couple of years. By the time you get fully into the workforce, you're going to be a 3-year veteran, which in AI time is probably like 100 years. Like AI is moving so fast that you're a veteran of AI as a young adult entering the workforce. And so I think that's just a really good perspective for agency owners and insurance companies and hiring managers. You're going to bring something to the table that's pretty cool.
Campbell, what advice do you have to give to agency owners when they're trying to recruit next generational talent?
To be transparent with our generation. That's something that as you're entering the workforce, especially in schooling now, we see people and students struggle the most when professors, coaches are not transparent with what they're offering, whether that's what the culture is like or what they're going to be paid, finances, benefits, everything like that. I think the most frustration comes from companies, people being not transparent with the people that they're working with. So I would say if you're interested in somebody, go get them and offer them what you're going to offer them. Don't lie or beat around the bush. Be transparent. I believe my generation works hard, but at the same time, they're going to try to find shortcuts, not because they don't necessarily want to do it, but because that's kind of how our generation is. We have ChatGPT, we have access to online. So just lay out what you expect and be straightforward. I kind of goes with the transparent thing, but being straightforward. And for me, I am pretty disciplined. If somebody is telling me these are non-negotiables, laying them out, then I'm going to stick to those. A lot of people say that wasn't laid out for me. I didn't know that was a non-negotiable. Transparency is the biggest thing for my generation. Don't be afraid to set boundaries and lay out those non-negotiables because some people will try to take shortcuts and beat around the bush.
That's an eye-opening statement, even though it sounds so normal to me. Like that sounds like, well, yeah, that's exactly what needs to happen. If I go back 20, 25 years, even 30 years, I think about just the way things happened, and you may have experiences here too. It hasn't been that long ago, I would say in the last 7 or 8 years, that our organization intentionally moved to just, here's the salary range for this position that we're hiring for. The history on that is my generation, the boomers ahead of us, there was so much of, well, we need to hire someone. I wonder what they're making. I wonder what we can get them for. There was this almost like car lot negotiation hiring process. And in hindsight, it was terrible, but that was the culture. I think that's the thing that has been really good for me personally, having been someone in that world for so long. The generation above me, the boomer generation, that's their norm. And then moving to this reality, wait a minute, transparency shouldn't be shocking. That should be like, okay, no, that's the right thing to do. That's the right way to go about this. It just wasn't cultural norms for so long that I think we've had to change. There's even commercials about, I think Indeed has a commercial, and it's this kind of back and forth, and they're kind of making fun of this whole process. Like, so what's the salary or what's the pay? And they're like, well, it's competitive. What does that mean? I just think there's a lot that we can learn by listening, just that transparency, that comment. I think that's a great point. I actually learned that by being on our local school board, and teacher pay was, it's public, it's the salary scale. And I'm talking to my good friend who was the finance manager at our local school district. And, even before Gen Z started getting into workforce age, that's what the public sector did. Information was available. And I'm talking to my buddy and I'm like, man, it's so hard to figure out what we're paying people and what we're doing. And this is like 10 years ago now. And he's like, not hard for us. That's the salary scale. That's what we're paying. You have 5 years experience. That's our pay scale. It took the pressure off of the hiring manager. It took the pressure off of the prospective employee, because it's just like, okay, this is what I want to do. And if someone wants to accept that, great. If somebody doesn't want to accept it, they don't have to. But that part of the conversation becomes a non-stress point.
I want to go back to something Campbell said, talking about the ideas and tricks to make things work faster. And that is something that Campbell was so incredibly masterful at over the time that she spent with us this summer. I started out like, here's some projects, give this a try. Let me know if you need any help. Here's training, here's some projects, and things that I was used to taking 2 and 3 days from people in similar positions. Campbell came back in an hour and a half and she's like, okay, I'm done. And I'm going, you're done with what? And she was done with everything. She went in and did that training the evening before, and then she got to work the next day and got everything for the entire week done in an hour and a half. I am not one of those people that minds people finding ways to do things in the most expedient manner. There are some people that don't like the use of ChatGPT, don't like the use of AI. I believe that is one of the things that our Boomer and Gen X agency owners have to be willing to make some adjustments on. If somebody knows a more efficient way or can figure out a more efficient way, let them do it. Embrace that.
This is a thing. So much of the ownership level of the agency brokerage arena is in the Gen X boomer space right now. And it was a big deal to move from we pay for time versus we pay for a job to be done. And that in and of itself sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but it's a big thing. It's still a big thing. Like someone's not at their desk, so they're not working. Working looks different than it looked 30 years ago, certainly 40 years ago. And there's this idea that now we're in the post-COVID world of people working remotely in a lot of cases. You have the whole friction thing of people being pulled back to the office, people wanting to be fully remote. It is all tied to this topic. Like it's all tied to time versus getting the work done. I would say even as Gen Xers, and Tonya's in that Gen X range, we're prepared that it's going to take so much time. Just take your internship for a minute. I'm sure if I put words into Tonya's mouth, she's like, okay, these are the things that Campbell's going to do this week. We're outlining this and it's going to take her about this much time. And so then you're giving this task or giving these tasks. And then instead of it taking you 12 hours, it takes you 2 hours. And then you're like, okay, no, there's no way it's right. There's no way that you actually got that done. And I think that's part of the friction that is generational friction within the workforce. But an agency owner or a company owner, should I be upset that I expected it to take you 12 hours, but it only took you 2 hours and I'm paying you the same? I think that in and of itself is the issue. I've moved to, I'm paying someone to do a job. I'm not paying them necessarily time for time. Now, am I willing to give them more? Oh, I thought that was going to take you 12 hours. So it only took you 2 hours. So congratulations, you're getting more work. So yeah, that's okay. Like I'm good with that, but it's almost like we have to deal with this generational friction point.
I just want to say I rejoiced when she came back to me in 90 minutes and said that she was finished, because it helped me realize, okay, what is she doing? How is she doing it? What is she doing to make it so much faster? And can we implement that in other parts of our system? Right. So I loved it, but I can see where that would be a question for some people for sure.
And that, Campbell, does any of that feel odd to you? You probably didn't know that we expected that it was going to take you 12 hours and it only took you 2 hours or 90 minutes. When you hear that, what do you think about that? What's your perspective on that?
I finished something and I sent it back and I was like, did I do this right? Because it should have taken me longer. But at the same time, I think that all kind of goes back to two things for me personally. One, it's the athlete in me that will get things done efficiently and quickly. But two, I love it. Everything I did this summer, I loved doing and I enjoyed it. When you have a passion for something you're doing, it's easier to get it done quickly. I didn't dread doing it. Every project that I was assigned, I wanted to get it done because I wanted it to look great and get feedback for my next project. Personally, I don't know any different because this was my first experience truly working. At the same time, I feel like thinking that it would take me 12 hours and only taking me 2, I don't think that's a negative thing because it's something new to me. if I've been working for you for 3-4 years and there's the same project you send to me and you're like, hey, this should take you 12 hours to take me too. And I'm like, okay, maybe you don't necessarily know your employees as well because you've had experience with them. But for somebody like me who's new to marketing, new to the business world, new to the insurance world, all of those things, it's not necessarily like that would make sense that you would imagine it would have taken longer.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's compare that to what we do know, what you do know. Practice, workout. What is the practice environment? Is it we're going to practice for 3 hours or we're going to practice until we get it done? And then you can do your own extra work, or you don't own your time as a Power 4 athlete. Like, that's an obvious thing. In season, for sure, you're almost down to, I'm sleeping this many hours. You just don't own your time as a Power 4 athlete. Is there a comparable here, maybe, in your mind?
I think so. When it comes to working, practicing, yes, we're going to practice for 3 hours no matter what in the fall because we have to get better and there's always things you can improve on within softball. But at the same time, if we go drill to drill, say we're doing this drill, we're doing a team drill, it's high intensity, a lot of energy. But if we do it right the first time, we're going to be done. We're not going to do the same drill 45 times just to do it. I don't want to say quality over quantity because that's not necessarily always the case, especially in softball. More reps is obviously going to make you better. But when it comes to drills, scrimmaging, things like that, if we're playing as a cohesive group and we're getting it done excellent in a efficient manner, like we're going to be done with it. But at the same time, I'm going to sit in the cage and take 4 buckets of balls and I'll do more because you can always work on that.
Do we dare bring up 21 outs?
Do we dare? Exactly. That's a perfect point. If we get 21 outs the first time, we're absolutely not going to do it again.
That's right. And then we're going to be so excited about our day.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
As someone who worked with Campbell all summer, I want to point out that she was so open for feedback. She wanted to constantly know how to improve, and she knew how to apply that to the next project. She wasn't afraid of asking for correction and taking it and making herself better. Do you think that is something attributed to you being an athlete, or do you think that's generational, or both?
I think a little bit of both. Athletically, absolutely. If you're not looking for feedback, if you're not looking to be coached, you're really not trying to be better. It's partially how I was raised. My dad also coached me growing up, and I was always, wanting him to coach me, teach me new things. I always was looking for feedback because I always wanted to improve, whether that was in academics or athletically. But as I've grown older, definitely can compare that to my athletics. Just, trying to make it to the next level, you have to be willing to take criticism and feedback. I do want to say the people that I'm around on a daily basis aren't always the best at getting feedback. So I don't want to say it would necessarily be a generational thing, but that's definitely something we could work on, is taking feedback.
Especially constructive criticism feedback. Would that be fair? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what lessons and takeaways from this summer at the Integra Partner Network will you carry forward?
Number 1, new opportunities. Just how I mentioned in the beginning, I didn't think insurance was something I was interested in at all. But after doing this internship, it has truly opened my eyes to the amazing opportunities in the insurance industry. Be willing to put yourself out there. I had to speak with people I've never met and be willing to have conversations and ask questions. And it really did deepen my knowledge of not only insurance, but people skills. So I really enjoyed it.
If next summer you had the opportunity to mentor our next intern, what would you tell them?
I would first tell them that it's going to be a very fun experience. But the second thing I would say is just don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to try something. And if it doesn't work, try again. Also take on any project that might be given to you and give it your best shot.
We have a phrase, get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is really hard for some people to maybe get their head around because, look, it's not fun being uncomfortable. Some people just like to be in their groove and, everything be kind of perfect and everything go well. But there is some really awesome experiences when you put yourself out there, when you get way out of your comfort zone. Tonya talks about so many years that she would say yes to things. It was kind of like Well, I say yes because it's always led me to other things, right? And it might have made me uncomfortable, but I had to get out there. I had to experience those new things. And by experiencing those new things, I grew. I think there's a lot to being willing to be uncomfortable is a huge thing. If anyone, Gen Z specifically, would be willing to put themselves out there and be uncomfortable, then I think it would shock them what they would experience specifically for the insurance industry. So, Tonya, what have you learned from Campbell and our Gen Z mindset?
Campbell really reminded me that our industry looks complicated from the outside. 7 years ago, when I joined Integra, it looked really complicated to me then and a little bit boring, let's just say it. And we are the people inside the channel responsible for changing that perception, figuring out how to do that. I really went into this summer hoping that what we would be teaching Campbell would be useful for her. And what I left the internship with was feeling inspired and hopeful about the future of our channel. Working with Campbell reminded me that we need to find people that are teachable, and that people that are teachable are out there. And then most of all, something that Shane and I have been talking about for a few years now is that athletes are built for insurance. Spending the 6 weeks with her, seeing firsthand how a competitive mindset, time management, and resilience just translates beautifully into agency life. And I mean, if you can manage that class load and D1 softball, then you can manage a book of business.
I think that's spot on. I don't know that I would have said that 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And that's not a jab at any generation. What's happened specifically within college athletics, Title IX, what's happened with female athletics. I just see such an opportunity there. Maybe it's a little bias on my end. I don't know that I would see it the same way if I didn't have such a close view of what's going on within NIL space and the Power 5, now Power 4 conference setting. I played baseball at Oklahoma State. The Big 8 and the mid-90s was not the same thing that it is today on any level. It was great and an incredible experience comparably at the time. What's happening today within the college athletics space translates beautifully to the insurance industry. It translates wonderfully to the independent agency space and channel, and it translates to the agency ownership, the future agency ownership opportunities of building a business, running a business, having the opportunity to have a career and a family that gets really just bottled up into this wonderful thing. And so that's what I see. And I think Campbell this summer has shown that. It's kind of validating to watch her experience this summer.
One thing that made Campbell's internship with us unique this summer is that it was split into 2 different segments because she had an extraordinary experience right in the middle.
Yeah, halfway through my internship, I had the amazing opportunity to play in a pro series in Kansas City. They put together a team called the Kansas City Diamonds, made up of all-star college players from the Midwest. And we played against 2 professional softball teams with the ultimate goal of bringing a professional team permanently to Kansas City. With that, I had the ability to be coached by former Kansas City Royal Billy Butler and Monica Abbott, who is a phenom pitcher who really has paved the way for softball in many ways. I also got to be on the Royals pregame show, which was such an amazing opportunity. I was a little nervous going into that, but saying yes to that was an amazing opportunity. And I'm so grateful that I agreed to do that because it got me out of my comfort zone. And it was also just an incredible experience. But with that, it is truly awesome to see softball growing as well as women's sports. With NIL, women's sports, specifically softball, have been growing. And, being able to have an internship where I was able to work on myself professionally, but then also work on athletics was a great opportunity.
Our internship is virtual. We're home based in Texas. Tonya's in Pensacola. You're in Topeka, Lawrence, Kansas City area. And so you're kind of in all of those places this past summer, right? Because of the reality of it. It still worked. I think that's really cool. That kind of speaks to the nature of work today. How did that feel? The virtualness, we could probably go a whole nother podcast about, the value of being in an office with your peer group, with your team, with people versus virtual. Speak to that a little bit. What's your thoughts on that?
I really appreciated being able to be virtual. Being virtual this summer has been awesome because I was able to have opportunities like the Pro Series and being able to work out, be with my trainers and all of that throughout the summer. But at the same time, it would have been awesome to be in person, work one-on-one with people face-to-face, because that's something you can't replace with being online all the time. It just depends where you're at in life. Right now, over the summer, I needed to be here working out, working on softball. When I enter the workforce, that might change and that might be more face-to-face.
I think it's a great perspective. And we question that, right? We look at it and we're like, okay, is this virtual? Is it giving you the right experience? Is it giving the intern the right experience? But does give so much opportunity that is also back to that, especially if the intern is college athlete as you are, it just makes more sense because you're still in it. You want to have a great senior year. You want to win. You want to be as good as you can be. And that comes with work. And you need to be able to stay with that commitment while getting ready for your future career.
Going back to the idea of project work versus time work, there were some times when Campbell was scheduled to be working with us where she was at the doctor or working with a trainer due to an injury that she had this summer. So we were able to give her the flexibility to get all the projects done when she needed to get them done, what she needed to do with her wrist, right? We knew how important her rehab was to getting back to where she needed to be for her senior year. That goes back to the idea of being open to hiring someone to get a job done versus hiring someone specifically for time.
Yeah. And I think it also is another testament to the industry as a whole and this ability to have some balance around career. You spend a lot of years working and a lot of time that you put into your career. And, you also want to have family, you want to have all kinds of things in the future. Getting a little glimpse into, hey, this is possible. This really is possible. I had a conversation with a young man the other day, and it was like, yeah, I just want to make sure that the career gives me the best opportunity to be a father, to be a husband, to be present when I need to be present. I just think that's so important. And I was an 80s kid, and I come through you're supposed to work 80 hours a day or you're worthless kind of generational thing. Let's find a better way. I love seeing how this is playing out, and cheers to us. That's awesome.
Well, Campbell, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the fantastic job you did for us this summer. We really appreciate you. Shout out to the KU softball team. We're going to be in the College World Series this summer, right?
Why not? Why not us?
Absolutely.
Why not us?
Campbell, I'm going to let you leave us today with your favorite quote.
I don't necessarily know if this is a quote from somebody directly, but my favorite saying is you cannot be anxious and grateful at the same time. So that really has altered my mindset in every single aspect of my life.
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
At the Integra Partner Network, we understand that carrier access is the key to your agency's success. That's why Integra offers direct access to top-rated personal and commercial carriers, ensuring your agency thrives in today's challenging market. And with our comprehensive resources, profit sharing and bonus opportunities, technology and peer support, all while you retain 100% of your book with no penalties to exit. Integra is ready to empower you and your agency to find sustained growth. Find your way to Integra. Visit IntegraPartnerNetwork.com today. That's IntegraPartnerNetwork.com.